Hello, coolers. Welcome back to Viva Barca and welcome to the home of everything Barcelona, where we are going to be discussing on the latest developing stories. We start with this Barcelona duo, Franck Kessie and Sergi Roberto, as it has been reported that the Barca duo are expected to be available for the derby against Espanyol after the World Cup break. Of course, those two players are currently injured. We are going to be discussing on that as we progress. Then secondly, talking about Alex Collado, who is currently on loan at Elche, as it has been reported that the Barcelona loanee could return to the club in January. Permanent transfer a likely option. We're also going to be looking at that. So guys, before we get right into it in much detail, please do ensure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Turn on the post bell notification to always stay notified whenever I post a new video. Consider liking the video and please watch it right up to the very end. According to Mundo Deportivo, injured Barcelona duo Sergi Roberto and Franck Kessie are expected to be ready in time for the club's next match against RCD Espanyol on December 31st. With the FIFA World Cup 2022 set to start in a few days, club football, is on a hiatus. And Barca played their final game before the break this past Tuesday when they picked up a win over Osasuna. The current La Liga leaders will next take the pitch on New Year's Eve when they lock horns with local rivals Espanyol in the Catalan derby, and they could be given a double injury boost for that contest, with Kessie and Roberto likely to be back in action. Roberto suffered a dislocated shoulder on October 23rd in the tie against Athletic Club, a match in which he had put in a sterling display as Barca cruised to a 4-0 victory. The versatile defender was ruled out for 6 weeks following that injury and should complete his recovery over the World Cup break and be ready in time for Barca's next game against Espanyol. As for Franck Kessie, he sustained an injury to his hamstring during Barcelona's final UEFA Champions League encounter against Victoria Pleasant on November 1st. The Ivory Coast international is also sidelined for a month and a half. With his national team not qualifying for the World Cup, Kessie will have sufficient time to complete his rehabilitation over the coming weeks and become available for Barca's derby encounter versus Espanyol. Barcelona are currently at the top of La Liga standings and have a 2-point lead over arch rivals and reigning champions Real Madrid. With the World Cup coming up, of course, Barca will not play for about 6 weeks before we play our next game against Espanyol on the 31st of December. That's the last day of the year on New Year's Eve. Of course, it's going to be an interesting encounter, a derby to end the calendar year. And of course, we will be expecting some players who have been out injured for some weeks. Franck Kessie and Sergi Roberto have been injured for some time now, and their availability will be so important for that game, especially as we might consider that some players will be tired, fatigue issues after leaving the World Cup tournament. You can understand with Xavi if he rests some of our key players, especially after the World Cup. The next game is not too far. So Franck Kessie, who came to Barca as a free agent, even though he had not had the best time, to be honest, he has not lived up to the expectations. And maybe some will say maybe Franck Kessie have not been trusted enough by manager Xavi and not be given enough time to prove himself. But I think so far he has not been good. But let's see how it is. He's a good midfielder. Barca wanted him for a reason. He was one of the main players at AC Milan last season, helping them to win the Scudetto. And of course, Franck Kessie at his very best will be so important for this team. He's a midfielder with a different profile. He has something different bringing to the midfield, not like the other Barca style of midfielders. But he's the kind of player that we might need him at some crucial games of the season. Then also Sergi Roberto, whose contract comes to an end after the season comes to an end, of course, will likely also return according to this report. Roberto has been a right back for since Valverde was in charge of Barca, Honestly speaking, Roberto have not been up to the mark this season. His performances have not really been that good. But of course, Xavi have always wanted a lot of options in any position. Roberto, from the look of things, will not extend his contract. Of course, he was supposed to even be out of Barca since, but when Xavi entered as coach, convinced the Barca board to keep him for another year, which they did. So he picked up an injury against Bilbao some 2 weeks ago, and of course, he was ruled out for 6 weeks. So 6 weeks by the 31st of December, he must have been okay. So if things go as planned, then Roberto will be back against Espanyol for what will be a crucial encounter, a derby. Even though it's a derby that have always been one-sided in Barca's favor, we can't rule anything out here. Then moving on to the next story of discussion, according to journalist Albert Roche, Barcelona midfielder Alex Collado could return to the club from his loan spell at Elche in the January transfer window. Collado chose to sign for Elche in the summer transfer window after it became clear that he would be starved of regular game time if he stayed put at Barca. The 23-year-old versatile star has been unable to find his footing at his current club and has played just over 500 minutes despite being available for all of Elche's 14 La Liga games thus far. The dramatic situation of Elche has not helped matters for Collado as the La Liga side find themselves at the bottom of the table with just 4 points. They had changed their manager in early October, naming Josh Almiron as the boss after sacking Francisco. Less than a month later, Elche have gotten rid of Almiron as well and are currently without a head coach. Given their dreadful situation, Elche are keen on strengthening their squad in the winter transfer window, and to that end, they could decide to terminate Collado's loan agreement as the Barcelona ace occupies a significant chunk of their salary mass. Deciding to cut short on his loan deal would free up space on the wage bill for the bottom feeders to sign a few more players in January, so they are contemplating such an option as they chalk out plans for the second half of the season. Should Collado end up returning to Barca, the report states that a permanent transfer would be a likely option for the 23-year-old. His contract expires in 2024, and as things stand, there is not much space for the academic graduate in Xavi's plans. So Barca could look at him as an opportunity to raise some cash and free up the salary space, given that they too are planning to enter the market for reinforcements in January. Such a move would come as a boost for Elche, as well as they will receive 20% of the transfer fee from Collado's sale as per the terms of the agreement in his loan deal. It remains to be seen what the future holds for the 23-year-old as he seeks to continue. So guys, with that, we have come to an end of this episode. Thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, bye bye.